Hey, welcome back to Weeby Kids again. My name's Danny and I'm one of the founders of Weeby Kids, and I'm also a storyteller. And I've been coming on to Weeby Kids now for over a year to share over 60 different stories with you that you and your family can enjoy together. There are stories that I've written that are completely unique, and there are also lots and lots of myths and legends and stories from around the world. But this week, I'm going to tell you a story that I remember from my own childhood. And this story is called the Magic Porridge Pot. So this story happened in a little town somewhere off in the centre of England. And by this town there was a big forest. And just outside the forest were lots and lots of big fields. And beyond the fields was a little farm. And in that little farm lived a mum and her daughter. And they worked really hard all year on the farm, so they had enough crops to last them and to feed their bellies. But on this year, sadly the weather hadn't been good for them. The spring had been really wet and all their fields were flooded. The summer had been really dry and all of their soil had turned to dusty sand. In the autumn there had been winds that had blown the soil away, and in the winter it had been so cold and icy that the ground had been solid. By the time it came to planting again in spring, the soil was so damaged and so destroyed that nothing could go in the ground. They tried all summer to produce some crops, but there was nothing at all. And when the autumn came, the mum said to the daughter, "We must do something if we are to survive the winter." She said to her, "Head off into the forest and look for nuts and berries. And when we find those nuts and berries, let's store them and they will get us through the winter." So the young girl, she took her basket and she crossed the fields and went into the forest. And when she was in the forest, she looked high and low for berries and nuts. She looked under rocks and in the bushes, but she couldn't find anything at all. She sat down on an old stump and put her head in her hands and started to feel very sorry for herself. How could she return with no food? But just then, like magic, out of nowhere, appeared an old lady. And this old lady had curly white hair. She had round glasses, a big long flowery dress and little black shoes that stuck out of the bottom. And this lady said to the girl, "Why do you look so sad?" And the girl explained everything that had happened. And the old lady said, "Well, do not worry, because I have a gift for you." And she reached behind a rock and she pulled out a big pot. She said, "This, my dear, is a magic porridge pot. Whenever you say a magic rhyme to it, it will give you as much porridge as you want." Now the young girl was a little bit sceptical. And she said to the lady, "Well, what is the magic rhyme then?" And the lady said, "The magic rhyme goes like this. Cook pot, make me porridge nice and hot." And as she said it, the pot started to cook and porridge started to brim out of the pot. The young girl couldn't believe it. They quickly grabbed spoons and started to eat. But then the young girl said, "But how do we make it stop?" And the old lady said, "Well, there is another rhyme. It goes like this. Stop pot, no more porridge, that's the lot." And the magic porridge pot stopped. Now the little girl was so happy with this. She thanked the old lady and she put the pot under her arm and she ran all the way home. And when she got home, her mother said, "Where are the nuts and the berries?" And the girl put the pot down in front of her. She said, "This is a magic porridge pot. If you say a magic rhyme, it will give us as much porridge as we need." Now, just like the daughter, the mum was also sceptical. And she said to the daughter, "What is the magic rhyme?" And the daughter said, "It's really easy. It just goes like this. Cook pot, make me porridge nice and hot." And as she said it, lo and behold, the magic porridge pot started to cook more porridge. The mum couldn't believe it. They grabbed bowls and spoons and they started to eat and eat and eat. But the pot just kept giving and giving and giving. So the mum said, "How do we make it stop?" And the young girl said, "It's really simple. There's another rhyme. It goes like this. Stop pot, no more porridge. That's the lot." And the magic porridge pot stopped. Now the mum couldn't believe it. Everything that she had been wishing for had come true. They now had a whole pot that would cook them as much porridge as they needed, and they would never want for food again. So they got the porridge pot going one more time, and they ate and ate and ate until they fell fast asleep. They were so full. And when they woke the next day, the mum said to the daughter, "Oh, I remember. I need you to head over to the next town, for in the town there is a shoe shop and we need to get your shoes repaired." So the little girl put on her shoes and her bag and off she went. And she walked out of the farm and across the fields and through the town, through the forest, over the hill into the next town. And while she was gone, her mum thought, "Oh, I'm very, very hungry. I wonder if that magic porridge pot will cook me some more porridge." So she got the pot out and she said the magic words, cook pot, make me porridge nice and hot." And the magic porridge pot began to cook, and the porridge started to come out, and the mum had a bowl, and it kept coming out, and the mum thought, "How do I make it stop?" And she knew there was a rhyme, but she couldn't remember it. And while she was thinking, the porridge pot just kept producing porridge. It started to fill the kitchen, and then it went out of the door and into the garden, and then it spilled from the garden across the fields, and it went from the fields and into the forest. And all the time the mum was thinking, "How do I make it stop?" She said, "Pot, stop! No more porridge pot, stop!" That wasn't the right rhyme, and the magic porridge pot kept cooking porridge. The porridge continued to fill the forest and into the town. The whole streets and the houses and the shops became filled with porridge. Everybody wondered what was going on. And the mum, back at the farm, was running around in a frenzy, not knowing what to do. And in the other town, the young girl had just got her shoes fixed. And she thought to herself, "I can smell porridge." She ran from the town up to the top of the hill, and there she looked and she saw porridge devastation. There was porridge everywhere. "Oh," she said, "what has my mum done?" And she ran down and into the town and through the forest and across the fields. And when she got back to the house, she said, stop pot, no more porridge, that's the lot." And the magic porridge pot stopped. But there was so much porridge. There was porridge everywhere. Her mum got a spoon and started eating, but that just wasn't going to do. So their mum and the daughter went into town and they asked the townspeople to help them. What could they do with all the porridge? And that is where the story ends. And that is my question to you. What did they do with all of that porridge? Imagine your whole town being filled with porridge. What might you do with it? Well, have a chat together as a family and let us know. So I really like that, and it's an old story. I remember having the book when I was just a little boy. It also has a nice little lesson with it as well. And the lesson really is, don't start something if you don't know how to end it. So a great little message. So enjoy yourselves talking about all the different uses that you could come up with porridge. I think one thing that I would do is fill a whole swimming pool with it and have a porridge swimming gala. So I hope you've enjoyed that story. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you again sometime soon at Weeby Kids. Bye.